Well, hello. We should be live. How's it going, guys? It's been a while. I know I haven't been active at all for the past 4 weeks, and I'm gonna explain why it is. But first things first, welcome to the stream, and welcome to the stream, Eric, as well. He's joining me once again, and I think we should tell them something about House of the Dragon Season 2. What are you saying? This is gonna be regular from now on. We are gonna stream for every episode, after every episode of House of the Dragon Season 2. Right when the episode ends, we're gonna be live. We're gonna be here to share our first few reactions, and we might even be accompanied by someone from the House of the Dragon cast, but more soon. More soon than that. Ah, yeah. We're not disappointed. Glad to have a break from you, Ricky. Okay, well, that's it. Let's end the stream right here. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Oh yeah. I already know where it goes. Oh, it's that one. I thought I'm getting attacked. I thought that I was getting attacked. Not yet. Okay. We can't hear Eric. Well, that's perfect. Be right back, guys. That's gonna happen again. We should be good now. This is the second time that this happens. I'm sorry, guys.
Hopefully we are good. Let us know if we're good.
Yeah, type on the chat real quick. That would help a lot.
We are a little bit behind from what I can tell on my side, but
Well, we should be able to hear it now.
Are we good?
I think so.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Again, sorry, guys. Second time, second stream. Yeah. Let's just start.
Good. All right, let's we're gonna redo this. Okay, so we're gonna start with some questions, and we're gonna take a question from Asha Greyjoys. Which A Song of Ice and Fire book do you think is the best written? And we can start with you. I want you to go first here.
Well, that's easy. I think the best A Song of Ice and Fire book is not A Song of Ice and Fire book. I think the best written book that we have in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire is Duncan Egg. The short stories. I think the way those are written, nothing comes close. Even though A Song of Ice and Fire is, amazing, but I think that's also part of the reason why I'm so hyped of the show, because how can you go wrong with the amount of like how high quality dialogue and high quality scenes that are written there?
I
You
like that.
can't.
I think that's a. I don't know if that's. I would say that's probably a hot take.
Ooh,
Honestly,
is it really? I think
I
it's the
think that's a
best
hot
written
take.
word
I
by
think if you were
George.
going to ask someone, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that chat. Like, what is your answer to this question? Because I think this is a fascinating question, just based upon like, even when you ask what is someone's favorite Song of Ice and Fire book, not even the best written, it's very like all over the place. I'd say most people would say A Storm of Swords, but for me, it's a tough one because I definitely think, how do you look at what is the best written in terms of, are you looking at consistency? Are you looking at highest moments? And that's something like I think people have different ways of looking at. For instance, like A Feast for Crows is a book that is not a lot of like really big highs, but it's also not a lot of really big lows. It's kind of a very consistent kind of travel. It's very just pretty well through the whole majority of it. Same with like the first book. This might be a biased answer given that I've done a reread and so I've looked so in depth, but I would probably say book 1. But I definitely understand why you say Dunk and Egg. I just think the way that George crafts characters in there, especially that book, because it's their development. It's taking, introducing us into this, all these characters, all these different areas, and having these characters feel like real people that are growing into their, older years or their teenage years, or even taking characters that are well established and also giving them where they already have these built-in ethics. They already have what defines them as people. And so they have those tested in terms of like Ned, for instance. So my answer for that would be the first book. But
I think
what does the chat say?
A Game of Thrones has my favorite chapter of all time. Edward X, Tower of Joy. The dream sequence is just so incredibly well written. So yeah, I'd say my top 3 are Dunk and Egg first. The second is A Storm of Swords, and the third would be A Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by my own answer because I thought I was going to say Storm of Swords, but something just overtook me. And I was like, I'll go book 1.
You should have said A Feast for Crows just to be different.
No, I can't. I can't. I'd be lying to myself if I said that. I mean, I think people from my channel know I have a hatred of Sam in that book. So yeah, I mean, it's not the best, but I guess we'll move on to our next question.
Hello guys, by the way. Hi Ami.
Oh yeah, hi guys.
Kai. Hi Sebastian. Betray King.
Let's go into, would you like to do Winds of Winter or House of the Dragon stuff first? Let me ask you.
Let's go Winds of Winter.
Okay. So I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Eglo, thank you for your question. And there you ask, is it still possible that we get Winds of Winter?
Oh, I think so. I think we will one day. I don't think he'll finish the series though. But Winds of Winter, with his publishers pushing him to split the book and everything, we might get.
Yeah.
I think we will definitely get a version of Winds of Winter.
I agree. I think based upon, unless we're being lied to, which I don't think we're getting lied to. There's just we already know that there's a certain amount of Winds of Winter already done. And so even if he doesn't completely finish what he wants to be done by Winds of Winter, I think we'll at least get what he has now, or at least what he'll complete by the time, he unfortunately passes away or whatever. So I do think we'll get Winds of Winter. I agree, though. I don't think we're getting the finish to the series, unfortunately. It just, you look at the amount of time that's passed between the last book and when we're potentially going to get Winds of Winter. I know people like to make the argument that, oh, well, Winds of Winter, if he gets that done, maybe it'll get him into finishing Dream much quicker. And it's still, you're having to write a lot of pages, right? A lot of pages, a lot of things have to be wrapped up.
He had 150 leftover pages from Dance that kind of kickstarted Winds of Winter, That was like a big fucking, head start, and it didn't help anything. But yeah, he could finish the series. I don't want to be pessimistic and pretend that like that's not an option when it could happen. I'm just done predicting, I've been predicting a Winds of Winter release date since 2015, so no.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's one of those things where it's like, it'll happen when it happens, And as much as I want it to happen, it just might not. In terms of,
Yeah,
it's hard to be inside of George's mind. It's hard to be inside of what's going on there. Just,
it's not looking good. Let's just say it. Like,
yeah.
that's how it is. Metal Mass says, "Are we going to get Winter Dam starring off on a depressing note?" Yeah, damn right.
Well, what you guys didn't see is we were having a whole therapy session before this stream, so it was natural to go to that.
True.
All right, so getting to another Winds of Winter question, we have one for God, man, I'm struggling on these land names. Electrode. How will John Con's storyline end? For me personally, it's a tough one to predict because is he going to still be with young Griff in terms of when Danny comes over and when Danny, probably is going to beat young Griff? Is he going to go down with the ship? I think it's possible. Given that he has grayscale, what is the effects of that? What does George have cooked up for that? Is that going to be part of some sort of plague? Is that going to be then found out? And then do we see a situation in which, just like how Jorah gets kicked out from Danny's camp, do we see that with John Con? It could be one of those things where it's just a bittersweet ending for John Con, where it's like he did all this work and he finds out that this maybe wasn't Rhaegar's kid. And, it's him dying with putting all of his life's work into this kid that wasn't actually Rhaegar's, but he still views him as a son type thing. So it's this really complex situation in which maybe he just goes down with the ship when Danny comes over. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it has to end in a tragic way because, why give him grayscale and, the odds of Aegon pulling through when 3 dragons are coming for him is not, they're not too good. So I think we're definitely going to see a plague, and I think he might even, transfer to Aegon, touch him or something like that, where, it's accidental or something like that. I could see something like that where, he is directly responsible for Aegon's demise. That would be very tragic, very depressing, but again, why go all out and give him grayscale and put him through so much stuff if it doesn't,
I agree.
come to fruition.
I also saw something in the chat that I was kind of interested by, but given that we were talking about Winds of Winter being released and all that, what do you think is the possibility that we get the second version of Fire and Blood for the continuation of House of the Dragon?
Well, George said that he would return to Fire and Blood after he finishes the Winds of Winter, so.
But let me play devil's advocate real quick. But what if the publishers want a book and Fire and Blood Part 2 is just easier to write?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that he will set Winds aside for Blood and Fire.
Oh, I hate that name so much.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Stupid.
It just needs to be Fire and Blood Part 2.
Yeah.
Why is it Blood and Fire? Oh, whatever. Okay. Let's see what other questions we got. We got anything else with okay, Joker? Matthew Stewart asked, can't wait for this one's fella. My question is, would you like if the books ended in a similar way to the show, but told much better and differently in a way that aligns with the consistency of George or consistency that George has given us, or would you rather be absolutely nothing like the frame of the show?
You go first because I'm going to be controversial.
Okay. Well, it's very different for the two to be similar to begin with. There's just so many different characters. There's so many different plot lines that are still there to where they're going to be fairly different just to begin with. Now, if you're looking at the very, very, very ending where it's like the actual result of Bran being on the throne, Jon is exiled to the north, Sansa is, Queen of the North. All those things could be done. It's just, how do we get there, right? Like, it has to make more sense than it did in the show with George's writing. And so I think a lot of people, I'm specifically doing a Sansa video this week, and a lot of people asked about the Queen of the North stuff. That is something that I think could happen, right? It definitely could happen. It's just, as of right now, there's nothing that really, I think, points to that idea, given how Sansa is almost nothing like the people of the North. She's very much someone that is still kind of a Southerner almost in the way she kind of looks at the world. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to end the way the show kind of did, but I think the way we get there has to make it more sense. Like if we get something like a mad Daenerys, like I do feel like there are things George can do to make that end up happening. Right, I talk about that quite a lot, but will he go through with it, or will the wins or not wins the winner, but will the ending of the show kind of change how George ends it because of how it went down? I think all that's a possibility.
Okay, so I think it's gonna be very similar, but not, the way we get there won't be similar because it felt so
Yeah,
disconnected to even the last season itself. That's why stuff like John being exiled, I think that is the way it was supposed to be. I think, and I even think that is a great ending for John. It just didn't make sense, or it
yeah. The
just
way we
wasn't
got
really.
there wasn't great.
Yeah, it was. You know, the setup was lacking, and yeah, George can definitely deliver way better development for those endings. When it comes to Bran, I don't think he's gonna be king in King's Landing. I could see something else happening. We talked about this on your channel, I think. He could
Yes, we did.
become king in some capacity, but king of the Seven Kingdoms in King's Landing, I don't really see that happening. Interesting that you're gonna do a video about Sansa. I always viewed her as, like an equivalent, like a similar version of the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth the First. She never marries anyone and becomes
Yeah,
queen. I think there are a lot of similarities there. But apart from that, as you said, she's not from the north anymore, really. She was a kid, but
yep.
it has to make sense. And right now, without Winds of Winter, we can't really speculate too much on that, I think.
Yeah, that's the issue I have with Sansa, because it's like George can go so many routes with her character. It's just, as of right now, if you're looking at where we are in the story and who she is as a character, it doesn't really make sense for her to be Queen of the North. Like, how would that happen? Is it just in terms of, oh, she's just a Stark alive right now? Like, she doesn't give off any of those qualities to become a Queen of the North. Given the way the North looks at women, even specifically, I just got done reading a chapter where they don't like that Daisy Mormont is basically in Rob's like honor guard, more or less. Like, they don't like even that. So put that onto a woman ruling them. Like, there's got to be a lot of things that happen there to make that happen. So I don't know. I think that's the difficult part. Is like George, and that's why I think Winds of Winter is such a hard book, because it's that connecting book. It's that book that you've got to set up all these characters for the end game. That's the biggest issue for me. But
And even then, will one book be enough to connect it to the ending? It's a
exactly.
gigantic task, over 20 POV characters, and
Yep.
some of them have to die eventually, and you have to get them to the end point, and it's not looking like that. Danny's still in, and wherever
Yeah.
he has to go
Danny's
back.
big
And
problem. Brand's a big problem.
yeah, even all the Greyjoy stuff.
Yep.
There's so much that has to happen. Aegon and potentially Daenerys going at each other at some point. There's so much stuff that prevents us to from coming to the end.
Yeah.
So we can't really speculate on that, but I'm just guessing based off it being so disconnected to what we saw before. Like Bran, Arya killing the Night King that was not planned. You can't tell me that in the context of the show, they tried to connect it by having her, by reusing her line,
Yeah. Throwaway line.
ice shield shot forever and everything, and just didn't make sense like at all. And in the books I don't see a Night King happening, so it's there are gonna be major differences. But I think Jon Snow going north. I can see that happening, and I can see Sansa becoming queen happening.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that, like, I think some people that maybe defend like Arya killing the Night King is like, oh well, you wanted Jon Snow to kill him or whatever. It's like
No.
it's not that. It's that you have all this built up tension between Jon Snow and the Night King, and you purposely do that. So you're building. There should be some sort of resolution to that, right? There can't just be, and that maybe that's Jon fighting the Night King, but he loses, or he sets up some sort of plan in which Jon is involved in the taking down of the Night King, whereas in the show it didn't really go anywhere. It was just Jon screaming at a dragon, Jon's running through all these corpses, which probably should have killed him, but it's one of those things where they set something up, but they didn't pay it off. They did something else to surprise the audience, and it wasn't built up to. So that was the biggest complaint, is there wasn't any setup to it, which I think George at least has a lot of the setup, especially done because Feast for Crows and Dance in a lot of ways are setup books. I've talked about this quite a lot. It's just, it's basically repeating the series. A Game of Thrones is your big setup book, and then Clash of Kings is kind of setting up for Storm, but it's also paying off some stuff from the first book. And then your third book is your big payoff. It's the same thing. Feast for Crows, Dance Dragons are your setup books. You then have kind of your Clash of Kings thing, and then the last book should pay off everything and end it all off.
Yeah, so, that's fair. That's fair. Winds of Winter is going to be an action-packed book. Lots of battles.
Yes.
Especially
a lot of battle.
But let's get back to the questions.
Yes, let's continue. So I did see this question, and we probably should have answered this, I guess, because you already touched on it a little bit, but Sharecad says, laugh at me, but do you have any release date predictions for Winds of Winter? So we're kind of getting back to that.
No, I'm done. I'm done predicting release dates. I've made a fool of myself so many times, so nah. What about you? Do you have a release date prediction? Go on.
Not really. It's just when people ask me this question, I'm just like, 2025, 2026 in the winter. If it's not released in the winter, then like I feel like I missed a chance of the Winds of Winter, like play on words thing. But let's see if I can find any more from the same person. Voice of Old Town specific question. Knowing that you are a Baratheon fan, what are you expecting from your favorite house in season 2? We're kind of getting to House of the Dragon now, but
nothing. Because he's off fighting the Dornish. And we asked this question to the guy who plays Boris Baratheon and Roger Grant Evans when he was on our podcast, and I don't think he's gonna be in season 2. I think he's gonna come back in season 3.
Yeah,
except that makes sense. The only thing that I could see happen is if they summon all of their bannermen and there's like a little scene and he's there swearing allegiance to Aegon in the beginning. I could see that happening, but apart from that, there's no Baratheons in season 2.
Agreed. I think that makes sense given the source material. But let's get into another one. And this is someone that I know specifically. But Maz asks, why are you a dirty green supporter? # Team Black Council for life. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, yeah. Do you see that?
I didn't see anything, but I wasn't watching the stream, so.
Yeah, I'm not a green supporter, but let's keep this meme alive, I guess. I've put this on myself by rebranding to Voice of Old Town.
I mean, it's true though. Like, you are a green supporter. The green light's there, so I'm just saying. I mean,
that's how you know.
That's how we know. There's nothing else to be said. That's all I gotta say.
I'm Team Smallfolk, and I always will be Team Smallfolk.
Yeah, okay. This guy, he has all must choose on the screen, and he picks the Smallfolk. Okay, all right.
That's true.
All right. If you're not Team Rhaenyra gang, then you're just you're lost. You're lost. I thought this live was about House of Dragon season 2. It is a mix. It's a mix.
We're going to talk about Winds of Winter as well.
But we're getting into it right now. So let's see, what other questions do we have on House of the Dragon? What do you think will be the ending of House of the Dragon? This is a bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want spoilers for the end of House of the Dragon or possible ways it could end,
just skip ahead.
Skip ahead, mute, do whatever you got to do. Will it end on Aegon III's coronation, same as season 1 started with coronation, or something else?
I'm mixed on this. I have mixed feelings on this because on one hand, it would be the perfect ending to end with Aegon III. But on the other hand, they are even expanding Cregan Stark's role in the show. So why not go for the Hour of the Wolf?
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it would be perfect to end it with the Hour of the Wolf, given that people love the Starks and um they're gonna love Cregan Stark as well. It's gonna become a fan favorite the minute he touches he's on screen. So
I I don't know. For me, I'm kind of like I really like just Aegon the Third being crowned, and that's where we end it. Don't overstay the welcome. Just it was about the dance and end it where the dance kind of ends. It doesn't 100% end, but I like that idea. I'm not, if they go forward, cool. That's more content for us. We love that. But I do think that's a good spot. Just end it there. But anything else you want to add on this topic before we get to another question?
no, I think yeah, it would make sense to end it on Aegon the Third.
And also that question was from Priyanshu. I hope I said that right. Thank you for your question. Helly Jumper asks thoughts on what events season 3 of House of the Dragon would include. Well, besides the Battle of the Gullet, thoughts on what events season 3 of House of the Dragon would include. Well, beside, oh, okay, we repeated the question. Never mind. But what do you think what events could be happening in season 3?
Yeah, well, the big one is the Battle of the Gullet. That's the big battle. I think we're definitely gonna get the fall as well, and it would make sense to introduce Daron and have him, do his honey wine stunt. So I
I
think
agree.
those are the three big things that happen in season 3. Well,
I'm
because
just
you
I'm,
have to remember, Fall of King's Landing already feels like the end of the show for people who don't know the source material. That will feel like the resolution.
mm-hmm. Yep,
Lots of stuff gets dealt with, and people die. So that is a big deal. That's why I didn't understand what people were talking about the Fall of King's Landing possibly being in season 2 already. Like
yeah, that makes no
that
sense.
that makes no damn sense at all. Also,
No sense at all, unless you're trying to speed run the show.
yeah,
But
which I'm glad that they're not doing.
yeah,
Them cutting
that's
it
great.
down to 8 episodes was a great move. That way we have more time with the characters and less and more money for the battles in the separate seasons. Because Battle of the Gullet, you don't want to have that compromised. If that doesn't
Agreed.
look like the biggest sea battle we've ever seen in television, then it's already no.
Agreed. I do want to say, interesting that one of your big points of season 3 was Daron. Yeah, he's a green. He is one of the better greens, but
Yeah.
a little interesting. I will say, maybe we could see some more of the battles happening in the Riverlands with some certain individuals. I won't say because a little bit of spoilery talk, but that's what I would add on there. I think you kind of hit most of the big ones. Really excited for Daron. That's all I will say. Definitely one of the best characters of this kind of era, I would say.
Definitely, but change his death, but that's good for yourself.
User asks, could we see the hooded hand in House of the Dragon? And then I'll get to your second one when we get to Duncan Egg. So will we see the hooded hand in House of the Dragon?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we already kind of,
we kind of already have.
Yeah, I think he's talking about, it going further than Aegon the Third and into his reign. He's probably referring to that, but even then, he is gonna be the hooded hand by then. So yeah, we're definitely gonna see him. Definitely gonna see him.
All right. See what else we have. Anything else for House Dragon before we move to Duncan Egg? What do you think will happen to Harold Westerling? Did he die after episode 9?
He definitely didn't die.
Yeah, he definitely didn't die.
They Barstanified him so much they have to go back to that. You know what my crackpot pot theory is on why they made him so similar to Barristan? Because Ryan Condal fucking hates the way David then treated Barristan. He's gonna have his own Barristan and he's gonna pull from the books. And we're gonna get that fine ass speech from when he's addressing his men for the battle at Marine. In a battle in House of the Dragon.
This stream is just
Probably not.
depressing. Why'd you bring up Barristan and how done dirty he was?
Well,
Like,
if you compare
I
Barristan
know.
in Game
Definitely a
of
lot of
Thrones
comparisons.
to Harold Westerling in House of the
Yep.
Dragon, that's very similar. Like that scene of him kind of going against the decision of the council, that's very
Yep.
Barristan. That's like,
It's about the exact same. It's
yeah.
about the exact same, different circumstances, but about the exact same thing. But yeah, he's definitely not dead. To answer that question, he's definitely not dead.
No. What do you think is gonna happen with him? Do you think he's gonna pull up at Dragonstone?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know what other options there are for him outside of just being maybe. I would say it has to be Dragonstone, but I'm trying to think of something else that it could possibly like be.
You know, he said he would accept commands from the king. Now there is a king again, so
That's possible.
so he could just show up in King's Landing as well and be back and
Yeah.
like, yeah, now there's a king.
He could just be like, yeah, okay, I'll support you. Just pull one of those things, like how Barristan supported Robert, even though he was with the Targaryens. I mean, that's that could be one of those type of things. I was trying to think of like the parallels, like with like Barristan in the book, where it's like everybody's thinking, oh yeah, Barristan's gonna go with Robb, or he's gonna go with Stannis, or he's gonna go with Renly, and that's just not ends up what happening. I was trying to think of like a scenario where like maybe he goes with just like another faction or something, but that doesn't really seem likely. But that's a good question, though. It's a very good question.
Let's go to the chat for a second here because we have a few questions. Jesus V says, do you believe the showrunner prefers Mushroom or Maester Munken's takes? I think they definitely like they try to mix it up. I think
it's definitely a mix.
It's more of a mix, really. I don't think they go full Mushroom. And in some places that would be very dumb to do.
It would be. I mean, that's the best part of it, right? Like Fire and Blood is literally you taking all these sources and trying to figure out what you believe happened, and that's what Ryan Connell's doing. That's what they're doing. It's their take on what they believed happened. And so, like for instance, right, you could go with like Rhaenyra and Daemon. That was something like Mushroom was like, yeah, they were actually hooking up and stuff early on in her life and all that stuff, or trying to show her how to pleasure Christian Cole or whatever. Whereas like Munkin has like a different side of that. So they're doing a multiple. They're taking one take here, another take here, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're doing their own twist on it, which is always cool. So
Betrayed King asks, thoughts on the Dunk filming locations. I think it's so cool that they're going back to Belfast. That's it's an OG thing, and yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. And I can't really talk about it much further.
I saw some I just want to respond to in chat. I just want to see Aegon the Third have some sort of happy ending. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one.
That's kind of the thing about Aegon the Third is he's never going to be able to be happy. It's been taken away from him, and
it's one of my favorite character analyses I ever did. He's a
Definitely
very tragic character. Very tragic character.
Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, you got to think about it. This is a young kid that goes through this war and all the things that happen. I won't get too specific into it, but it's a lot for a kid to go through. Let's make sure there's nothing else for House of the Dragon. And then we will head over to Dunk and Egg. All right, so let's go. Oh, hold on. We have one more. Jesus says, will season 2 introduce Alice as the daughter of Lionel Strong?
Most definitely. Most definitely, yeah. I think there's no reason to not go for that. I mean, they could totally lean into her being magical and then just not adapt that. Or they could turn her into, something that's a bit where it's unsure, where you don't really know what she really is, and then she's just. But Rivers, I think it's all there, and Larys was a naughty boy, so not Larys.
Again.
Lionel.
Yep. Again, it's just one of those things where it's what way do they want to go with it, right? What take do they want to do of the character? Because we have so much information, very mysterious type of character. You can kind of go a lot of ways with it. So, yeah,
I hope
I
it's
think
magical, because that's lacking
I
from
do
Vance.
too. It would just add another element of it. It would just add to the intrigue of the character, of what's going on during this time. I think it'd be a really good introduction for them to do. Let's get into some Dunk and Egg. And I think this is a great introduction question. From Sharecat, once again, what are your hopes and worries concerning the Dunk and Egg show?
Oh, I don't have many concerns, actually, because the I get and can't I can't see. I'm struggling to really talk about this, because there's been something that I was there was something, and I think that they focus on the right stuff, and I think that the show is gonna be really good, and it's gonna be everything that people want. And it's it's small scale, so I only have hopes for this show. It's small scale, and it
Yeah.
can pull from, an amazing book or 3 amazing short stories, and possibly even more stuff that is coming from George. I think you can't go wrong really with this. I can't. I don't see this being ending up in a Game of Thrones situation at all.
I agree. I think my problem with coming up for concerns is any concerns I can kind of think about are things that I think other people have that are concerned on the show that I have, like, I've talked to you about enough to where I feel like you've changed a lot of my opinions on certain things on this, but like things that I would have used to maybe have said here would have been like, will people be interested in it? And I think because of House of the Dragon success, I don't have as much to worry about that. I think, this show is not going to have dragons, for instance, right? There's not going to be that. So it's going to be,
Thank God.
yeah, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, I think a worry if you're HBO is, okay, well, people see the show and want and be interested in it. Will they recognize it as being connected to the Game of Thrones universe? And I think you will, right? I think there's a style that all of kind of the Westerosi stories or George R. R. Martin stories have that translate well to the screen.
Yeah.
And this is going to be kind of different from some of the stuff we've had in the past where, it is, Dunk and Egg and how they're going around with situations. And there's a lot of room for, making stories within those stories, right? And connecting some dots and going through. That's another concern that I think maybe I would have had in the past where it's like, this story is not done. Like the Dunk and Egg story, it's not complete. We have, parts of it, and then we end up knowing what results of it. We know what happens at their end, but there is some gray in there, and that's kind of great for if this story, it's not, limited, it can make things happen, right? This is a show that could go on for a very long time if it's successful. And so I think these are maybe some concerns that I would have maybe had. So I just bring those up to have them. And then, because maybe some other people had those concerns.
Yeah.
And so then I think, hopes for it. I think the sky's the limit with it, right? I think it's a show that could do really well just based upon what kind of popular shows we've seen. Even right now with like The Last of Us, Mandalorian, it's going to be kind of that idea, but put into a world of Westeros where it's a little bit more, not as good. There's a lot of people that are trying to gain power or using people and all that stuff. So I think sky is the limit for it.
It's the story of, it's the typical, it is kind of like Mandalorian, where the father figure and it's beautiful because the world of A Song of Ice and Fire is just so dark, and you have them wandering around the 7 kingdoms. You could do anything you want. You could do so much stuff. Like it doesn't have to just be the short stories. This is actually a show where I wouldn't mind them adding to it and putting their own spin on it. Obviously, it has to fall in line. It has to make sense for A Song of Ice and Fire, but I can't really see them going wrong with it, and I'm sure that people will like it a lot.
I agree. I saw something in chat that I want 100% back. The Dunk and Egg books on Audible, they are fantastic for audio listening instead of reading. That's the way I actually got introduced into the story for the first time with Harry Lloyd,
Oh yeah,
the actor that plays Viserys. He does a fantastic job, and so I really would highly recommend that if you have not read them or if you just want to listen to them. But I will say what makes it so good. It's just to me, it's the characters and the situations they're faced. There's a lot of situations where it's very much like a Song of Ice and Fire, but I feel like you're put more up close because you're not jumping from POV to POV. You're staying with the same characters. And so it feels like what if the best way to kind of explain it would feel like if you had like Ned when he was younger and some of the experiences maybe he was going through, but you have that with a hedge knight, which is something we really don't get in Song of Ice and Fire at all. Someone that's, lower class. He's not in one of these higher families feuding over all these things. This is someone trying to just have a life where he can feed himself and do all these things that has hopes in this world. And so you have all that put to the test. And I think for me personally, I have a bias because there's a lot of interesting Blackfire lore here that's really interesting to discuss. But if you want to add on to that, go ahead while I look for questions.
Well, it's pretty much just the same thing, I like it because of that new perspective,
Yep.
And the small folk stuff, the anti-war thing that I think makes Song of Ice and Fire so great is here. This is just so emphasized in Dunk and Egg, and I just love Dunk. I just love Egg. I think they have a great connection.
Yep.
It's gonna be very funny on screen, and I can't wait to see it.
Can't wait to see Egg's hat.
Yeah, it's gonna shave soon. It's gonna be they're gonna film in 4 weeks, I think.
Awesome. So we have one other question here about the Dunk and Egg. Do you think we will see the tragedy of Summerhall?
Yeah, that would be my end point. That would be the ending of the show for me. So obviously eventually we're gonna run into them having to do time jumps.
Yep.
For Egg, at least, recast Egg, and yeah, I think that would be a brilliant ending.
I agree. It's one of those things where it's like, that's why I think this show could be a slam dunk for HBO, given that I think it's definitely going to be something that's a little bit more small scale. So you're not worried about it flopping as much as something like House of the Dragon, but the sky is the limit. Like if you can get a good foundational fan base like House of the Dragon has done with their first season, which I think Dunk and Egg will be able to do.
Yeah.
You have so much content there because, not going too far into the character of Aegon, he goes through a lot of trial and tribulations with Dunk, and there's a lot of gray in there, some things that are happening with Aegon's family that, are going to be interesting that they can definitely explore. Who knows if we kind of maybe even expand it out as the series goes with, Bloodraven being around at this time, going towards, that inevitable Summerhall. Like there's just so much content. There's so much history in there that, you can go. This series could be a very long series if they wanted to go that route. But I do think like that's a very good endpoint. It is Summerhall. I think it sets up perfectly into not only just, a Game of Thrones, the normal show, but if you ever were going to do a Robert's Rebellion show, which I just don't think is going to happen while George is alive, because I don't think he wants that time period talked about yet and revealed because of.
He also said that about Dunk and Egg. He doesn't want to have a Dunk and Egg show, and now it's happening. So I'm not sure.
Well, maybe they can
potentially they could even end it with Rhaegar being born. That might be the ending of Dunk and Egg.
I mean, it's just the end of his reign is so vital to Robert's Rebellion. That's why in my Robert's Rebellion series, like I started with like Summerhall and all that, because it's so impactful to the Targaryen legacy and dynasty and why they eventually fall. But yeah, I think hopefully we end up getting to that point of the story. I have no other questions, by the way. So we can just, if you got some questions in chat that you'd like to ask us,
just go ahead. Yeah.
But one thing I am excited though, because I didn't get to talk because, we have some technical issues, but, doing House of the Dragon live together, that'll be a very fun experience for you guys, hopefully.
So let's talk about that again, because I'm sure that, the technical issues made that hard to understand. We are going to be live after every episode of House of the Dragon Season 2. Right when the episode ends, we're going to be here to talk about our first few thoughts and reactions to the episode. We're gonna be accompanied by some people from the House of the Dragon cast. Not gonna reveal, not gonna reveal who it is yet, but you're gonna like it, I think, and yeah, hope to see you there for sure.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
it'll be the perfect experience because you're gonna have, the Greens on one side with Voice of Old Town, and then you'll have me, a loyal Black supporter. So it's the
sure,
perfect,
yeah, yeah,
whenever war crimes start happening,
yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
defenders for both
Mm.
sides, But yeah, I'm excited for that because, for people that were on my channel, the first season when it came out, it was definitely an experience. I was right in my only neck beard phase. It was a very weird time. But yeah, it was a good time. Hopefully, House of the Dragon. I think this season's gonna be better than the last one. I really feel like they would have looked back at what criticisms were the first season, of stuff like that. And that's another thing. I want to discuss this with you. I know we've had this discussion off camera, but I know people have had I think this is just for hardcore Song of Ice and Fire fans of them doing you have it on screen right now. This marketing of you must choose.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And for me, I just find it very mind blowing that people have issues with this because it's I get what you're saying. It's we really shouldn't be choosing. We shouldn't be coming to this war. But it's the marketing. The marketing is brilliant because this is exactly what people in Westeros would have been faced with. You would have been faced with the idea of, well, which side do you support? Do you support the black side or do you support the green side? You would have been forced to choose, and those would have had dire consequences either way. So it's just perfect marketing. But I don't know.
It's a no-brainer, and it was always supposed to be like this. When it was always it's gonna be like this. There's no way around that. It's the perfect marketing opportunity just from a merchandising standpoint. It's a no-brainer. No, I'm team small folk, but you just don't have to be all arrogant about it.
Yeah.
The point of the story is that the small folk, you can just enjoy it for whatever it is. I'm team black, I'm team green, whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be pretentious about it. That is something that happens so often in our fandoms. Yeah. It's so annoying when people are pretentious and think their own shit is the only shit and there's no other opinions. I hate when that happens. So like what you like, and I like what I like.
Agreed, 110%. It's the same idea of if they were going to do a first Blackfire Rebellion show. It's it would be the same idea. It's are you going for Daemon Blackfire? Are you going for Daeron? Who are you going for?
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's meant to draw you in. It's meant to make an emotional connection for you, the audience, with these characters. It's the same idea as Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones, you whether you like Rob or you like Stannis or you like whoever to be get on the throne, you're more invested in that character. So when that character inevitably falls or he dies, whatever, it's just that's where it goes.
And even if you look at it from a George wouldn't like this standpoint, well, he talked about this on the latest Comic-Con that they did for House of the Dragon season 1. He was like, yeah, we have to market it like Team Green, Team Black. There's an actual video of him saying that, so it's all you, it's all projecting.
Exactly.
If you have an issue with that,
it's one of those things where it's meant to poke a hole and this is not how we should be doing things, but it's how a lot of times in history things were.
Yeah,
that's kind of the point of it. But yeah,
Jesus V asked, will they feature Maester Aemon? Yeah, a very, very small Maester.
Yep,
Maester Aemon. It's gonna make.
I would love that. Thoughts on the armor and costumes that we've seen in the teasers for season 2 of House of the Dragon from Sebastian? I think from everything I've seen, they look fantastic.
I think it looks better. It kind of has a Renaissance feeling, which I'm all here for that. I love it when it really when they pull from real medieval and kind of historical stuff. Don't like it's a fantasy show, but I don't like it if it's too fantasy-ish.
It's one of those things where I personally have never thought, even in Game of Thrones, that the costumes were not good. I feel like they've always been good. They've always been good, great. I think there's certain things where it's in Game of Thrones, they didn't want to go into having the characters wear the crowns and whatever, but it was like, okay, I think we should have. But, you know, I think usually visually wise, House of the Dragon's always been very good. And Game of Thrones, there's hiccups, but yeah.
I see a lot of people or a lot of women complaining about the costumes of the female characters, but I'm just not too educated on, you know, on that whole. I can't say, I'm not sure if a dress is accurate or if that's beautiful or not. I'm not the.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I just have no clue, so I'm the wrong people. I'm the wrong man to judge this, but
I mean,
I think I look great, and I think they're doing a fantastic job.
All I can say is based off what I see on the screen right now with Alicent and Rhaenyra, they look fantastic.
Yeah.
So I don't know on that one. We're all just rooting for book characters to be included. That's true, 100%.
Yeah, that's true. He also asked, Betray King asked, Cannibal, Sheepstealer, Daron, Nettles, Red Fork. Yeah, it's difficult to answer this question. You're gonna see why in a few months, but yeah, I don't think we're gonna see Cannibal because that's a lot of waste of money in terms of, you know, CGI. But he's gonna show up eventually. But you know, there's stuff that happens in this season that they definitely need their money more for. So yeah.
I think we need to go back a second. I saw this comment, but when will Olivia Cooks split a bottle of gin with you on the pod? When is that happening?
I'm not sure. I don't think it's happening on the podcast, but you might. I might make an announcement sooner or later about something. There's so much stuff in the stream that I can't talk about yet. It's crazy. I'm sorry for.
Okay, I'll give you guys the
annoying,
answer. So the
guy.
answer is he's trying to keep it on the down low right now. You know, he's you know, he may or may not be having a relationship with her. You heard it here.
I definitely don't have a relationship.
He's definitely not. He's definitely not, dude. But
yeah, there's gonna be that's something that I can say. There's definitely gonna be more interviews, bigger interviews, the biggest interviews that I've ever done. Those are gonna happen this year, but I can't really talk about it yet, and I will let you know.
You guys just gotta wait.
Yeah,
you're being pulled along by a string, but when it happens, it'll be fantastic.
I hope so.
Any other questions for us? But I do hope we get to see a lot of these minor characters.
Roddy the Ruin. I don't think we're gonna see Sarah Snow. There's been nothing all promo season or all leaks season. There was nothing.
That's the issue. Is like Sarah. A lot more of these like more minor characters is we just don't see like any of them, so it's hard to predict if you're gonna do that. I don't know. Jesus asks, last House of the Dragon question. In hand-to-hand combat, who wins, Aemond or Daemon?
Yeah,
they're going to be judged heavily of the way you answer this one.
Definitely
Who'd
Daemon.
You say?
Definitely
okay. We'd love to see that. All right.
Aemond has
correct.
one eyeball and he's not battle tested yet, so... Definitely.
Yeah, Daemon just has something that it's not as shown in the show, but like if we're going out the book version of the characters, like Daemon's been warring in the Stepstones for literal years. So
yeah, that's all he did for years, and that's all he's made for, really.
Yeah, it's one of his biggest things, just being a general for kind of Rhaenyra, which we'll kind of see at the forefront of the coming seasons, where Daemon's in that position where he, in a lot of ways, is kind of like the military mind behind the Rhaenyra's camp. He's very similar to like a Robb type character in terms of, you know, he's got a lot of that. Better example is the Blackfish in the books, where he's kind of like, he's not the person ruling, but he's like a really heavy battle strategy kind of guy. But yeah,
I can't wait for the scenes at Harrenhal, and I hope that they will really focus on Harrenhal being haunted, and that's something that they've been teasing all the time now. You know, them really emphasizing on this being an actual character. Like, you can really feel this place there's something wrong, and I hope they explore that.
Exactly. I mean, Harrenhal is one of the most interesting just castles in general, just because of its history. This curse of all the people that are made the lords of Harrenhal. They end up dying some way, or they mysteriously are just gone. And we even kind of saw that in season 1 with the Clubfoot. Like, yeah, people getting taken out, and it's just very mysterious. Whereas like history, it's gonna be like, oh, they kind of died to a fire or something. Where we're not sure who did it though. All that kind of stuff. Very mysterious area. I mean, and one thing is Game of Thrones, we didn't really get to go through that atmosphere that like we get kind of in the books with Arya. It was kind of limited down, even though we got some great scenes between Arya and Tywin. But
Yeah,
hopefully we'll get more of that, which I think we will. But
yeah, yeah. Alice Rivers is that one character, the one adaptation that I'm looking forward to the most. I just can't wait to see how they go about this. There's so many options. I've been dying to see more magical stuff, and
yeah.
hopefully they go that route.
What are you most excited to see this season? I'll go first because I have a pretty easy answer for this. I want to see them lean more into Rhaenyra as a character. I want them to develop her more. In the first season, they did cut a lot of things in terms of Rhaenyra that made her a bit more morally gray, like a person where it's like, okay, this is not such a great person. Whereas in season 1, Rhaenyra definitely kind of comes off as like, Daenerys, as being kind of the hero character. And so I want her to, especially with the death of Luke at the end of season 1, how does that affect her as a character, right? How does that change her as a person with the things that she's going on? Because you got to think in a very short amount of time, she's lost her father, who she was close with, and they developed that relationship even more in the show than in the book. She's lost a child in childbirth. She's lost Luke now. Like that's a lot to happen in a very short amount of time. I want to see how that character grows throughout the season.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me, not with Rhaenyra, but with Corlys. I was looking forward to having, to hearing his stories because the man has seen it all. And sadly, in House of the Dragon season 1, we didn't get to hear anything really. It was all about Rhaenys and her not being queen. So I hope that kind of that gets improved and we can really, hear more about this man, and what he's seen. In terms of
Agreed.
what I'm most excited for, I think it's just that it's going now. It's gonna go down now, and I hope that that people will take it lightly. When it comes to the stuff that happens towards in the beginning of the season. I don't want to spoil anything that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it's like really the Dance of the Dragons is a situation where you have two groups of people that commit a lot of bad actions, and there's just a lot of people caught in the middle of it. And so it'll be interesting to see like how do people react to that? Like maybe characters that they really liked in season 1 and watching what things could happen, and how war is, what war makes people do, or maybe how things go down. It's one of the main core ideas of A Song of Ice and Fire. Like the first time we see, war in the first book is with Tyrion, and it's just a horrifying scene where you're seeing people, dying and pleading to live and all these things, and that's kind of what we're going to start to see more of. And when people are desperate, what does that push them to do? So
I hope they all turn into lesser and lesser versions of themselves. More
that's
reckless
what should happen.
Yeah, that's what makes this story, this time period, so interesting, in my opinion.
What was the worst change season 1 did from the book? If we're talking about House of the Dragon, I would say it's the Rhaenys stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh my god, that is the first blow. That is the first act of war. They effectively changed that, and to play badass music over her killing small folk people, and it's supposed to be this cool moment. That's just so wrong, and I think and hope they learn from this because it's so unnecessary. It was always the last scene of those episodes that didn't, just kind of didn't make sense, man.
Yeah, it was either that or I think for me it's hard because I really wanted to see more of the stepstones, and I think that's my expectations not matching up with what the season could do, and so that would maybe be another one, the way they maybe resolved the stepstones plot line, but. I mean, there's a bunch of other ones, right? You can have Kristen Cole beating up
Yeah, that
Joffrey in the
was
middle of
awesome.
everybody, and
There's
like
a few things they threw in there just to have a big what the fuck moment in those
yeah,
episodes when in reality people were there for the complexity and didn't need those moments. So that's a
I
huge
agree.
lesson, and I hope they've learned it.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, where I feel like there's a couple of those mistakes where I think you could tell they were worried about keeping that fandom or bringing that fandom back of Game of Thrones. And so there's some things where they tried to kind of copy from Game of Thrones, where like Game of Thrones, you kind of get to like the first season, it's like I think it's like episode 5, and you kind of almost have like this big cliffhanger, a big moment every single episode. But I just think, to me, you didn't need to do that, right? We were kind of building to that part of the story where that's going to almost start happening like a lot of these episodes in season 2, where it's like just so many major things going on in terms of a massive scale war all across the country. So I don't know. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, yeah.
What without spoilers, what battles do you hope the show doesn't cut out from the book? That's a tough one. The one
I
that
don't
came to
think
mind
they will.
instantly, I know they're not going to cut it, so I'm not even going to say it. But
I don't think they're gonna cut the important ones. I'm glad that the focus early on in season 2 is gonna be on Blackwoods versus Bracken, because that would be the typical Game of Thrones thing, right? Cutting those kind of storylines and those kind of characters, and not really taking, not really caring about the smaller houses, but also the dragon. We had a setup moment between the Blackwoods and Brackens in season 1 when they were, when the what was it? Blackwood guy kills. What was his name? Small.
I don't remember
A
his name,
small
if you want to
knight.
be honest.
A small knight that kills the Bracken bully. So there's focus on that, and I really like that. So I would have said that, but we already saw that in the trailer. So
yeah, that's my issue. Like the one that instantly came to my head was one involving Kristen Cole, but that's not it's not gonna be in this season. It's gonna be just going forward, and there's no way they're gonna cut that just based upon what happens. So I don't know. Hopefully they keep the like integral ones there. Like I don't know. That's a tough answer. That's a tough one to answer because you'd have to be looking at like a minor battle that maybe we can just hear off screen, and some of them you just can't really do that with, I guess. But
I'm sure we'll get all the big ones.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think they'll bring back Lanor somehow, or will they just forget him since he left Sea Smoke? That's
You go first.
That's a tough one because I was not a fan of that change. It's difficult given that we've seen there's a connection between the dragon and the writer. So how does that end up working? So I would have to think Lanor is going to be back in the show at some point. So I would say yes to that. What about you?
I think there's a huge attempt, and I will call it an attempt so far, to make the connection between Dragon and Dragon Rider more complex and to really show that on on House of the Dragon, because Game of Thrones didn't, John just hopped onto Rhaegal and that was it, there was no big deal. That was no big deal. In House of the Dragon, they want to make the whole show more complex based on the dragon stuff. But then they also have stuff like Lanor, just leaving his dragon there, and I'm not sure how they're gonna address that. I hope that it will be done well because that's one of the things that I'm kind of worried about. Because on one hand, they focus on Luke not really controlling his dragon, and on the other hand, they just act like Sea Smoke is gonna forget about you know,
Sea
Leno.
Smoke. Or yeah, yeah.
Sea Smoke as well.
Um, yeah. I agree because it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have a big question mark there. If because we know that Sea Smoke, there's gonna be some other things involved with that. So if Lanor is still in the picture, like how does that work? Like how are they gonna explain that? Like
Yeah.
is it something where if Lanor goes far enough away from his dragon, maybe that connection's broken or
It's Bluetooth.
something like
Like,
that? Like how does that work? Like it's just a lot of questions because this is a very new concept in terms of how's the dragon bringing it to the forefront.
yeah. And I'm interested to see how it goes down. It could make the whole thing better, and it could also significantly do significant damage. So
I agree.
I'm curious. I'm just curious. Are you guys? Arias the best asks. Are you guys still worried about the 8 episodes for season 2, or could each episode still have a lot happen? Um, the show, season 2 having 8 episodes is actually a great thing because that way they spend their money on the separate battles and don't have to compromise, for example, the Battle of the Gullet. It was always gonna be, from what I've heard, it was always gonna be a a longer season with like 14 episodes or 15 episodes, and decided to cut it into 2 halves to take care of the budget, because the Battle of the Gullet is gonna be filmed. Parts of it are gonna be filmed on actual water as well, which is crazy expensive. And if we don't even reach the Battle of the Gullet, and if you look at what happens before the Gullet, that means we have a lot of time to really take care of the character relationships and the development of them. So it's better that way. It's better that way because you don't have to end a whole show on less episodes. You just choose to end it at a certain point, and that point is going to be reached within 8 episodes. And I wouldn't be surprised if season 3 had 10 episodes again, for example.
I would agree. I think when I first heard the announcement, I was a little bit worried. But I think specifically talking to you, you kind of helped ease my worries. But I do agree. Like think about what my thing I was most looking forward to for the season was, and I was developing Rhaenyra. It wasn't about any of the battles that were going to happen or anything going on. It just allows us to have more time to breathe for those characters to naturally grow as characters or descend as characters, right? Getting more into their bad impulses or things like that. And I think we will see that. So I think a lot will still happen, right? You have to remember there's a conflict going on everywhere. And just because we didn't get a specific part of it in the book, it doesn't mean, there wasn't something happening, in the Westerlands or whatever. Like there's a lot that you can do and kind of fill in those gaps and give us more scenes where it's Alicent and Otto reacting to a situation. It's Alicent and her kids related or going about something, or it's her kids interacting, because we don't get a lot of that in
Yeah,
Fire and Blood.
letting the story breathe. It's also quick.
Yeah.
The easiest thing that they could have done is just showing battle after battle after battle, but I think they've learned their lesson from season 1, which is exactly why it's only 8 episodes now, because we have more time in those episodes to really develop them. And there's just that one big battle, and that's it this season. When it would have been way easier to compromise and have 2 battles, but they really care and they wanna enhance the characters, because that was something that people complain about a lot. Harwin and Lena and all those things. We can really have more time with, for example, Cregan Stark and Alice Rivers this season, and Adam of Hall, and I think the Dragon Seeds plot, and that kind of connects us with what we've talked about earlier. The Dragon Bond stuff. That's gonna be a huge storyline that will even lead into season 3. I don't think this is gonna be resolved in this season. So there's lots of stuff to look forward to that they will expand. Cregan Stark, for example, in the trailer we've seen that we go to the wall. That's new. We didn't, it's an enhancement, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it's done well.
Agreed. I mean, even think about characters that we wanted more of, like Rick Rainey's, for instance. And there's a lot of things we can explore with the character, right? Like she has a very rich background. She is someone that you have to remember in the show right now. She pretty much believes that like her son was kind of murdered by Rhaenyra. They had that whole little arc that wasn't really resolved in episode. What was it? 7, I think 7 or 8, where they're making their or Rhaenyra's trying to get the Velaryons to basically back her and stuff. And yeah, so we could get more of that. I mean, there's just a lot more you can explore with those characters. But yeah.
Lily asks, how do you guys think they will develop Rhaena in the show? Very interesting question. There was obviously that focus on episode 10 when Damon was talking about unclaimed dragons. So I think she is a character that will probably be explored through that whole dragon bonding stuff, and that's something that was there even when she was a kid. They had that scene with Lena where she was talking about not having a dragon, and it's really something that is very important for a character. I expect her to play a bigger role in House of the Dragon, and we can also see that with Baela, right? Because she's she's involved in Rook's Rest, I think.
I mean, think about it in terms of just put yourself in Rhaena's shoes. You're someone that doesn't have a dragon, but your father did, your mother did, your sister does. Everyone around you has dragons and you don't. So that's going to be a big factor of the character of feeling, very helpless, feeling like, you have to sit out the war while everybody else is out doing things, right? I think that's something that could really play into that character, which would be really great to look at, especially with trying to figure out what that dragon connection is about, giving us more into that idea. But yeah.
Arya is the best asks, what would your reaction be if we got some White Walker action in season 2? Could it be seen as a bad decision if they add it in? I'll let you go first.
Okay. Personally, I just don't want to see the White Walkers. I don't really care about that plot. I don't think it is needed in this story that's about the Targaryens and this civil war that ends up happening that really damages their power and their way of life. It's kind of about showing why war is so bad and all these things. And I get you can make that connection that, oh yeah, we're all warring against each other when we should be worrying about this threat of the growing part of Westeros with the White Walkers. But I just don't feel like it's needed in this show. I feel like it's forced in there to connect it to a Game of Thrones. And I didn't like that really when they did it with the dagger either in season 1, where it was like, oh, well, this dagger is going to be used to kill the Night King with Arya. It just felt like it was being put in there to connect it, as well as for the payoff about, later on Viserys on his deathbed, and that Aegon is the prince that was promised, all that. I wasn't a big fan of it in the first season, and I don't really want to see more of it in season 2.
Yeah, but I think we're definitely going to see more because...
We are, unfortunately.
Why would they abandon it right now? And I mean, we can just say it how it is. I mean, they are going to be at the wall, and there were some photos going around the internet that would suggest that we might even, that's something that is probably going to happen. And, knowing how Game of Thrones often did stuff like that, there's a scene in my head that I just can't, okay. You know what's going to happen? Jace and Cregan are gonna go north of the wall. Vermax is not gonna go over the wall.
Yep.
So there's
It's
that.
like a certain other dragon.
They don't have dragon glass. They're gonna get attacked, but Cregan has ice. And there's gonna be that moment where he just kills a bunch of whites and saves Jace's life. That's how I see it. That's just a typical television show thing to do, and I can already see that happening. Do I want to see that happen? No. No, I don't care about the White Walkers, especially in House of the Dragon. But it's probably gonna be connected. I'm gonna add to the drama of the prophecy not being transferred to more heirs, and it eventually being lost, and then Rhaegar brings it back, that prophecy.
Okay, my question though would be, if that happens,
Hmm.
the one thing that maybe it's not as much in the show, so maybe that's why maybe it works better. But the one thing I think about in terms of Ned is if that happens, right?
Hmm.
You would think like the Starks would know like much more about like the others. That would be a really big thing for them if they have an encounter. Their Lord has an encounter with the White Walkers.
Yeah.
That it would be a little bit more like not as a myth. Like by the time we get to like Ned in the main story, it's just like that's some sort of fairy tale. What are you talking
It's
about? Like
dangerous. It's dangerous.
it's
Because
something where it's like it's I get why they're doing it, but it's something that's like, okay, you start doing things where I'm like, I don't know if I can follow the logic of your main lord sees this. Wouldn't
yeah.
you start like writing this down or telling people about this, trying to prepare for this threat? And then by the time we get to Game of Thrones, it's just like it doesn't exist. So it just seems like a weird thing.
Grandpa Cregan talking to his to the children. He's like, "Yeah, I fought once. Yeah, Grandpa, you did.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah. Snarks and Grumpkins, right?
Yep. Oh boy. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. We're gonna get it, so there's no point of like saying, "Oh, they shouldn't do it," because they're gonna do it
Aegon's
already.
prophecy
But
was in episode 1 of House of the Dragon, so it's a thing.
Yep. Um. Also, hi Dvorlin. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Appreciate you. Could we see the crypts of Winterfell again? I definitely think we could. I think that's definitely something that could be brought up when Jace goes north.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, it is the Stark thing to do, right?
I would like to see Sarah Snow. We just haven't had much to indicate that we will. That's kind of the issue with that one. So Arya, this is where I'm kind of getting confused on the book and the show because I haven't watched the first season in a little while. In the book, it's made quite clear that Ned thinks like they're a myth. Like they're not, a thing really, or if they were thousands of years ago. In the show, I don't remember if that was as big of a thing or if Ned was just like, I don't know about that type thing.
He just said a madman sees what he sees. That's what he said in the show. He was like, yeah. Arya also asked, will we see Jace go to the whale? I think we will. And I think that Jane Arryn is going to tell him about Luke, which is why he goes back and then has a conversation with Rhaenyra about Aegon's prophecy so he can talk to Jace and be all about the North and the threat to the North. And, they connect over that. So I think there are a few changes going on from Fire and Blood with Jace. Because it wouldn't make sense if that would be the Vale, the North, and Dragonstone in the very first episode. Unless Luke's funeral was in episode 2, but even then that's fast. That's fast. That's Littlefinger Game of Thrones kind of fast. Time traveling Littlefinger.
Some would say even Varys speed. He's crossing all around continents.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Is that a good spot? Is that where we're ending it?
That's a pretty good spot, I'd say, yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Eric, for joining me again. I am already looking forward to all of the House of the Dragon Season 2 streams. I'm sorry once again that I didn't upload much. I am just, rehearsing because there's a play coming up that I'm a part of and I'm writing screenplays. In the middle of starting my own short film channel. I will definitely let you know once that is set up and running. There's a lot of things that I just really enjoy at the moment, and House of the Dragon is not yet there, so I wasn't very active. But there's a podcast episode coming that'll be out soon. It's on Jace and Rhaenys in season 2. And, yeah, hope you still care. Hope you're still there. And I will see you soon.
Bye, guys.
See ya.